a lot of questions that I like to reflectively ask people as I'm working with them is creating these certain conditions. So these are usually our first steps when I'm working with new teachers. And where are those small steps that students or that teachers can take impacting the student experience that don't feel like a big lift where they have to come up with like this 6 to 8 week project? So we talk about this idea of how can we make learning public? How are we bringing in authentic audiences and community partnerships so that students are presenting their learning to this authentic audience? How is learning iterative? How are we building multiple opportunities for students to get feedback? How are we having them be iterative and that share that learning with their peers? It might be peer-to-peer feedback. It might be feedback from a teacher. I get to travel around all the time as a district administrator and give feedback to kiddos on their projects. So talking about making that learning iterative, super important. Also a very easy step for a teacher to kind of really create what we often call like micro PBLs. How are we going to make their curricular experience and their experience with us every day? How do we make that impactful on their lives? I'm going to talk about Mary, Cindy, and I were Zooming yesterday, and I had just come from a project launch that I'm going to talk about around some food trucks, but it was like those kids were like, that was impactful. They all went home yesterday and they talked about that with their families. I can almost guarantee it. And how are students being reflective on not only the product, but also the process? So thinking about the idea of having students being able to explain how they got to that end product is super important for kids. And then how do we co-create with students? So how are we bringing students to the table in order to talk about what they're going to learn?